name is Chris Davies. I am the healthcare partner at JCP Solicitors and a long-time member of NASDAL, National Association of Dental Specialist Accountants and Lawyers. I'm going to speak to you today about 5 key considerations when you're thinking about buying a dental practice. And hopefully the things I talk about will save you time, effort, and hopefully money. Okay, so the first thing to think about is you need to plan ahead. Now, that seems pretty obvious, but it is an important consideration, because what I want you to think about is what type of practice are you looking for? Now, as we all know, there are only 3 types of practices, essentially, other than specialist practice, which I'm not talking about. But you can have a private practice, or you can buy an NHS practice, or you can buy a mixed practice. Now, it's really important that you think about what type of practice you want to buy and what practice actually suits you and your family, because there's a fair chance you're going to be tied in with this practice for maybe 20 or even 30 years. So I think a bit of time at this stage is a good idea. Don't be afraid to ask your friends. Don't be afraid to ask your principal, whoever else you know in the dental world, because this is really important. So that's my first point, which is to plan ahead. Okay, my next point, which is point 2, follows from this, which is to take advice early. Okay, you may have identified a practice, or you may be thinking about, well, that practice is quite nice, or this practice is quite nice, or that practice is quite nice. You need to speak to people to be able to determine which practice is best for you. Now, this is my plug for NASDAL, because we are specialist lawyers and accountants who only really buy and sell dental practices. So this is your opportunity to link in with us and ask us questions about what we think about the practice you're thinking of buying. You should also think about speaking to specialist brokers or agents who buy and sell and lend money to dentists all the time. And I would also even speak to the dental agents, because they've got a whole wealth of knowledge from buying and from selling dental practices. And the only thing to remember with an agent is that they're there for the seller. The seller is their customer, not you, the buyer. Okay, so that's number 2, take advice early. Number 3 is, how am I going to practice? So this is probably the real legal bit now, okay? Because there's effectively only 4 ways you can practice. You can either buy a practice from a sole trader so that you become a sole trader. So that's one individual selling to one individual, and you'd be buying his goodwill or her goodwill, equipment and property. The second way you can buy is to buy into a partnership or create a partnership. And the classic model here is, of course, you as the associate buy into the principal's practice. So you then go from a sole trader to a partnership. Okay, again, you're dealing with goodwill. The third way, which is very popular at the moment, is to buy a practice as a company. So you'd actually purchase shares in that company. There may be some tax advantages into doing this. I'm not an accountant, but that's where you should be speaking and taking advice on things, because that may be useful. The last method of holding a practice is quite common, and it doesn't really happen anywhere else. It's a hybrid practice. So as far as the private practice is concerned, you buy shares in a company, but you'd also buy the NHS practice as a sole trader or as a partnership. So it's a bit of both, okay? And you will need 2 sets of accounts probably, but that's not an uncommon model, but it's not very popular outside dentistry. Okay, so the next point is to make an informed offer. And what do I mean by that? Well, as you've done all the groundwork, looking for practices and looking at types of practices and how you're going to trade, then you need to spend some time about making an informed offer, which means an offer at the right price for the right practice. Now, I'm sure people will tell you that there aren't many practices for sale. Well, actually there are. And some people will tell you that there are not many buyers around, but actually there are. But the danger here is that you get bumped into buying a practice that isn't really suitable for you. So please take your time here and make an informed decision at the right price. Okay, my last point is to be proactive in the process. Now, this is good advice at any time, but it's really important at this time with all the COVID difficulties that we're facing at the moment. So the pinch points for buying a practice are many, and lots of things will slow you down. But here's a few to think about and things you can start really quickly. All parties to the sale and purchase will need an enhanced DBS check. That's very delayed at the moment. Please make it as early as you can. If you're practicing in England, you'll need a CQC application. That is currently running at 20 weeks behind. Yes, 20 weeks. So that's a long time. So you need to make that application as soon as you possibly can. Okay, you will need money, and if you are going to a bank, then the bank will need to undertake a valuation of the practice and eventually provide you with an offer. That is running quite slowly at the moment, again, because of COVID. The trick to being proactive and quick is to really try and use specialist people around you. So a specialist lawyer, a specialist accountant, a specialist funder. I'm sorry to bang on about this, but it does make a difference. It's a long process anyway, and you want to try and make it as short as you possibly can. So those are my 5 key points. So just to sum up, they are: number 1, plan ahead. Number 2, take advice early. Number 3, think about the type of practice that suits you and your family. Number 4, make an informed offer. And number 5, be very proactive. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed listening to this and have found it useful. I look forward to catching up with you again in the future. Thanks.